Hi again, and welcome to the Recharge Your Marriage Show, where nothing is taboo and nothing is off limits for helping you to refresh, reconnect, and reignite your relationship. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Zev Halpern. We have an exciting show tonight. Our marriage panel guests include Meghan and Enrique from True Conversations podcast, Rachel Singer, psychotherapist from The Mindful Heart, and Paul Bennett from Relationships by Design. We'll be digging deep into relationship topics that you've told us you want to hear more about during the marriage panel. We're talking marriage, happy and not so happy, the raw and pure marriage stuff that drives our relationships forwards and backwards, confuses us, and makes us crazy sometimes. We always value your point of view, so let us know what's on your mind and what relationship challenges you want us to focus on. Send your comments directly to zev@rechargeyourmarriagenow.com. Please sit back, chillax, open your heart and minds, and consider some ways you can recharge and rekindle your marriage. It would be an understatement to say that relationships can get really difficult and dicey. Disagreements, moods, stress, money, in-laws, sex, to name a few, can really push us to our last bit of patience, even to despair. Many throw up their hands and wish and say things they regret, causing things to even spiral further downward. There does come a time to draw a line in the sand, but many just take the easier path, the one of least resistance, and do nothing and say nothing. While no one can blame you for doing nothing, it adds up till you're looking at a pile, which prevents you from even seeing each other. What to do? Many want to know. Here's a suggestion. Do something to move this situation to a place you can get some fresh perspective. Well, where's that place, Zev? Can you help me get there? Well, one of you needs to start the ball rolling and draw a line in that sand as to what's acceptable and what's not. While you're drawing the line and stating your credentials, ask your spouse nicely to join with you in stepping over the line together. Inviting is just that. It feels good to be invited, not told or yelled at. Invite them to step over the line together and show that you're both culpable and have a bit of responsibility regarding where your relationship has landed. Now, say one thing you'd like the other to do, which would make the relationship better for you, and be reciprocal by inviting them to share something they're concerned about. It's not the time to have the difficult discussion today. This is the time to say and listen. Leave the blame, accusations, and nastiness out of this, and plan a time to discuss some more of what each of you can do to move the relationship out of the ditch. Easy, no. Productive, yes. The mutual benefits of really showing your spouse you heard their concerns, issues, and needs can be the restart point your relationship has been needing. You've opened an opportunity window where you can start to figure out how to step up and start moving this logjam, impasse, mess in a more constructive and positive direction, or not. Something for you both to think about. Take a look at this, and we'll be right back to introduce you to tonight's marriage panel. Welcome back. One quick thing before I introduce the marriage panel. After the show, please log on to rechargeyourmarriagenow.com. Claim some free marriage-enhancing resources available for you to download. You won't be disappointed, and let's keep the conversation going. So let's meet tonight's marriage panel. Meghan Enrique is the founder and CEO of True Conversations. Soon after the birth of her second child, Meghan had what she called a face plant moment, which ignited her to create True Conversations. True Conversations LLC provides a podcast network for businesses to host their own shows around polarizing or stigmatized issues, creating opportunities for understanding. She's highly sought after to speak with, train, and interview a variety of audiences around the most stigmatized issues of today: communication, leadership, and redefining true success. Meghan served as an intervention director at Johns Hopkins University and is a mother of 2. Rachel Singer is a licensed clinical social worker and the owner of the Mindful Heart LLC, a private psychotherapy practice in Montgomery County with office locations in Bethesda and Silver Spring. Rachel works with individuals, couples, families, and children. She specializes in addiction, eating disorders, relationship issues, depression, anxiety, self-esteem, trauma, family conflict, and grief. Her greatest intention is to help clients understand themselves better and to improve their quality of life and relationships. She caters her approach to each client, responding to their own unique problems and personal style. Rachel has a genuine interest in watching all of her clients grow into the best version of themselves. Paul Bennett is an author, poet, and relationship explorer. After the death of his wife Bonnie in 2002, he published a highly praised book, Loving Grief. Today, with Carol Herndon, his wife of 13 years, he leads workshops that explore the fundamental design of relationships, exposing the sources of upsets, frustrations, and disappointments in the relationships of all kinds. Carol and Paul are explorers in the realm of relationship and are always on the lookout for fellow adventurers. Their latest adventure is a delicious experiment called the Pleasure-Powered Marriage. Thanks so much for everybody coming and stepping up tonight. I wanted to start out with a little icebreaker. We always have a prop. This is my prop, you know. I'm not a millennial. I'm not whatever comes before a millennial. But I got to tell you something. I like these. And I wish I would have had one back when I was little, because I found all kinds of things that you can do with it. And, you know, I find that you can waste a lot of time. They're fun. And look, you can do this. And feel the wind. And it pushes at you. So much for icebreakers. So anyway, divorce rate is high. I'm not even going to state it because I don't like to. But what's the glue that keeps the other marriages together? There are some things, children, extreme dependency, you know, on another person, economics, religious stuff. What else? What is the glue that keeps the marriages that are making it going? You know, anybody want to jump in? Want to start? I know you have a great marriage and you have beautiful kids.
Thank you. So I think as a millennial or as a younger parent, one of the things that my husband and I talk about a lot is really how good of a team are you? How can you as a team navigate through life, through challenges, through each other's downfalls and moments of where you're in the most need and they're the one that's there to unconditionally be there. So that's something I think we took away from our parents, was this commitment and this teamwork and the work ethic that it takes to keep a marriage going.
And being a rung, you know,
Yeah.
so when you need that rung to hang on to, because we all do,
Absolutely.
there it is.
Yeah.
How about you, Rachel? What do you think?
I would say authenticity, the ability to be authentic and be vulnerable with your partner. You know, I think open and honest communication sort of follows that as well. You know, I just think that is so important. You know, difficult, you know, things are going to come up, you know, throughout marriages. And I think what really sticks you together is that, you know, being able to really communicate genuinely to your partner, be able to express your needs, be able to also, not make assumptions, but, ask open questions. But I just think really being authentic is so important.
So there's a bit of comfortability, with this person that you're talking. This is a person you can say the things that other people you can't say necessarily to. This is somebody who you can, sound off a little bit as we do.
Exactly. Oh,
in our
definitely.
relationship. What about you, Paul? What do you think?
Well, I think that a big part of it is not expecting it to stay the same. It doesn't, and you don't expect that person to stay the same either.
So we're talking ebbs and tides? Are we talking,
Well, just waking up
big
every
changes?
morning and saying, gee, who is this person next to me this morning? And
I think
what
a
are-
lot of marriages do that sometimes, but they don't always do it in the most positive kind of way. They go, who is this person? My God, what did I do? And they start, maybe thinking about coyotes or
Yeah,
something.
but if you're really curious about that person, a lot of what we notice people doing is trying to hold it together. And often when people talk about working on the marriage, they're actually talking about trying to keep it from changing. And that's first of all, you're probably going to lose because it's going to change. Change happens. And also you lose a lot of the fun and a lot of the, I should say, the authenticity because, oh my gosh, I better not say that because I haven't said that before.
Right.
It's kind of cool. I mean, Paul, you're talking about, you have a certain piece of being comfortable about that. Some people, they don't have it. They're like, it scares some people to death when all of a sudden, they remember back or they happen to go and look at their wedding, photos, and they start going, what? Who is this person? Like what we were talking about before, and they're afraid, that like somebody didn't tell them that the person they were going to marry was going to, change so dramatically. That's not something that they tell us at school. It's not something that they tell us in the, no heads up, good luck to you. That at the wedding, they say, good luck. And they hand you the check. Well, I think that meant more than just, what do you think about it?
When he was mentioning that, the first thing that I thought of was that we can resist change because we're afraid of loss. And so by saying that one new thing or that one thing that as you're growing you need to finally give a voice to, that we don't, because if we've never said it before, we don't know if that person's going to still unconditionally be there.
Right.
It might scare them enough where they're going to walk away. And I think that we can put ourselves in a box and lose our authentic voice and lose our willingness to allow ourselves to change from fear of simply losing
Because
that
a voice
person.
doesn't come tell us, that says, I will be changing,
Right.
like over the next week,
Right.
or in response to this whatever, dramatic issue, or very serious. Like we get hit with a lot of things as these teams, that we're talking about, marriage teams, that you mentioned, and it's difficult to, who rises up, who
Yeah.
pulls the other up, who falls down. It's kind of difficult. So anyway, so weathering the storm. There's a lot of storms. Again, it results in a lot of marriages going, the other way and south. What are, some ways that you deal with, weathering, when these storms come in, the storm clouds, what do you do? Like, where do you start? As a person, as your personality, everybody has a different way, and some of it doesn't work out so well, and some of it does. What do you think? Anybody? Jump in.
Well, first of all, what keeps you in the game is your promises, which we also call commitment, except we often talk about commitment like, I'm committed. Well, actually, no, it's, are we committed? Because actually commitment is a we thing. So that's what keeps you in the game
So commitment
when you
even-
could walk out.
Right,
Right.
so commitment even is like kind of like it's a notion, it's a thing is commitment, the ones who don't have this, whether what about if you're not feeling like, there's an available support, in this person next to you or that you're waking up to, what do you do?
Well, that's when you go back to the promises you made. And we got the big promise, the big promises you made when you got married, and then there are the small or medium-term promises you made along the way. And if you take those, we had those promises. That's what keeps you going keeps you in the relationship when the relationship is down here.
So let's take a quick stab, we don't have a lot of time, but in terms of, the smoke clears in marriages, how do we deal with the whole issue of changing our partner? You know, people talk about, oh, well, I'm going to change this person, you know, like I'm going to marry this person, and you know it. I'm going to change his or her, you know, and because I know how, because I'm a miracle worker, you know, or something. What do you think? And change is a big word. What are some lesser things, you know, that you might do?
I think some of it comes down to compromise. I think that's a big word that we often talk about in relationships, and it's being able to, you know, find a way that, you know, if there's something that you don't like about your partner, or there's something that bothers you, again, is it saying you need to be this way? Does it really have to be that black and white? Or is there a gray area where, again, you can sort of come to a compromise about, you know, it could be a character trait, it could be anything, but finding a way, you know, maybe to sort of come in the middle and, you know, find something that works for both of you. And again, it's also about tact and delivery. I think, you know, if you say, I really can't stand the way that you do this, that's probably going to be met with defensive-ness.
All right, so we'll leave it at that. You know, we'll leave it at Rachel's, you know, very nice summary of that. And we'll move to the sexpectation segment of the show. So this is the sexpectations part of the show. We talk about sex. And the first thing, sexual adventurer. The whole issue of, you know, when someone says, well, she's more sexually adventurous than he is, or he's more sexually adventurous. What's the connotation? Do you get the I mean, is the connotation good or bad? Is there a bad connotation to that? You know, they're saying that they wander, or they wishing that perhaps said partner would be a little more sexually adventurous inside the relationship and kind of push the envelope inside the relationship. What do you think? Do you see it as connoting something good, or is it something bad to be sexually adventurous?
Well, when I hear that phrase in the beginning of our marriage, I would have told you, oh, that's bad, because things should stay the same, or things should, you know, whatever works,
works. You
works.
Me the way it
right,
was. You
right. You like me for who I am.
Yeah.
But then after 12 years of being together, my answer would change and say that if you're going to continue to stay together, and just as much as you find new hobbies together and you find new ways of connecting or talking or things to share together, I think that's just an essentially important area of your relationship that also then has to change and become more adventurous, just like every other career-wise and other personal, social-wise.
What about if you don't want to? I mean, I've heard it. Numerous people, you know, more than numerous. You know, I don't want to, you know, be, you know, change. You know, I don't want to be his porno star. You know, I don't want to jump into that, you know, whatever, you know, hoop he wants me to, you know, jump through, or, you know, whatever. You know, it's a big world, and there's a lot of crazy stuff out there. Enter the internet. You know, we take it even, you know, way further. What do you think, Paul, about sexual adventure? Is it a good connotation or bad?
Well, we like it because because it can be playful. You know, it's essentially playful. It's like, what happens if we go here? But the other thing you got to remember about adventure, see, if you're on a trip and things don't go the way you expected, that's bad. If you're on an adventure and things don't go the way you expected, that makes it more of an adventure.
Stuff happens.
Stuff happens,
You
and
got to roll.
That's where the adventure comes in.
Because Paul's a flexible guy. You know.
So if you're out to discover something, if you're out to discover a way that you didn't know you could give your partner pleasure, then great. And by the way, if it turns out that doesn't give your partner pleasure, fine. That was an experiment. So.
The big buzzer comes, you know, well, we're not doing that again.
Then,
we're not going there.
The thing about an experiment is no experiment fails.
That's true. Somebody said that.
You always learn something.
There's some famous inventor that said, only unexpected outcomes. There are no failures, only unexpected. Fuller, he was an inventor. He actually said that. You know, and what do you think? I mean, new mom. New mom therapist, Rachel.
You know, I don't think sexually adventurous needs to be good or bad. I don't necessarily think we need to put it in one of those categories. I think a lot of it has to do with what does that mean to, again, I go back to like open and honest communication. What does that mean to your partner? And to not make assumptions about what that means to each of you. So, not be blinded by society, not be blinded by what you think it should be, but really, having those conversations about, if you want to have more sexual adventure, like talking to each other about, again, what does that mean to you? And, kind of compromising, finding sort of a, a common
Like you're
ground.
sitting at dinner, and you're eating, that whatever
That too.
and you go like, excuse me, but, can we raise the bar a little over there, and hey, you know what, I'm going to talk about this at dinner. Thank you very much.
Good delivery, yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing. All right, let's talk about sexual messages, okay, because sexual messages flow like a like this, and some of them are extremely limiting, in terms of what the receiver, gets like. I know we had a great time tonight, but don't expect too much in the next 5 months, or I'm not going to be doing that, again. What do you think about the silent messages and the big messages that we sometimes mistakenly, maybe not, maybe it's not mistake, pass to our spouses? What do you think, Megan?
What comes to mind is it was a really great suggestion Brene Brown had made that really stuck with my husband and I whenever we are not speaking out something. And so if I were to perceive that there was a silent message that said stop or I don't do that, is that instead of just assuming that I know what that is to go to him and say that the story I'm making up in my head is that didn't work for you. And give him a chance, or vice versa, give each other a chance to say, oh no, my silence was actually because of this or that, or you're right, it didn't, and let's kind of work through it together.
So there's a narrative going
Yeah,
on
so
in
just
your
what's
head
your what the story in my head is this, am I right or wrong? And having just simply opening that up instead of assuming what the silence or the rejection means for them.
And piggybacking off of that, I think if there are silent messages being sent, the issue is not really what's happening in the bedroom. In my opinion, I think it's more about why are the messages having to be sent silently? Why aren't, if whatever kind of sort of passive and silent message it is, why isn't that able to be communicated outside the bedroom? And what is that really about? And that could be a whole slew of factors, but I think it's really trying to get at, again, maybe not getting so boggled down in the content of the bedroom necessarily, but again, why is it that we're not able to be open and honest with each other and be, authentic?
What if they're doing it on the granite in the kitchen? then what do you do? How about you, Paul?
No, I think that's what you're saying is great, because there's something else at work there. So if I have to give an unspoken message, then the first thing probably that needs to be said is why I can't speak.
Right.
Like
That you're feeling, whatever the reason.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
feeling
I mean-
inhibited, or there's something coming from you that's preventing me, a strong, something coming from over there, a current or something.
And in our experience, it is always some flavor of fear. There's if I can't say to you straight what there is for me to say,
Yeah.
well, there's fear in the room. So it may be that the first thing that needs to be said is, I'm afraid to say this. I'm afraid to say something. And look at that. And then maybe there's a clear space for
Because
saying what
that's
you
kind
wants
of
to
like
be said.
letting people know what the climate is, what the weather is, so that you know what to wear, so that you know that this person's got this thing on their minds. And then first, it's like a corridor. I mean, what you're presenting is kind of like a before the conversation, just to find out where are we, what's happening here. So talking about sex is difficult, and we're talking about sex. And we've already been through that, but with each other and with people, it's always been this taboo from whenever. Even the most open people still get into that. So what do you think? Is there a good way to talk about sex? Paul's, what you just said, what you said before about the narrative, bring that into this conversation, because I think people have a great deal of difficulty talking about sex. So let's reinforce that, ways, which I just heard two really good ones, to go about it, to what was that again? To provide a narrative,
to offer up what is going on inside your own head and to share that with your partner in a way that's not going to evoke any defensiveness. So really taking it on to you that this is how I'm processing it, or this is how I'm fearful of this conversation, and then letting them react to that. And I think the thing with vulnerability is also that you don't have guarantees about how the person's going to respond. So I think that we can thoughtfully, you have to ground yourself first and really be ready and willing to, when you have a difficult conversation, sometimes people wait till they're at the end of their rope simply because they need that much bravery to be okay with any result from the conversation, that they just at least had it.
Right, but you had it. You put yourself, you made yourself vulnerable first without expecting that they're going to be vulnerable before you have to do it.
Yeah.
What about you, Holly?
Well, Carol and I did lead a session, about an hour and a half, with 125 to 140 people in the room at the convention of this wonderful organization called Couples Coaching Couples. And it was called Let's Talk About Sex. And, people were so grateful for that session.
I bet they were.
And what we started on, one of the things we started with is, what do you like about sex? What have you liked about sex? And just telling the other person. An awful lot of our conversation about sex comes out to, what we don't like. I know that didn't work. I wouldn't do that. But what do you like? I mean, we want to give pleasure to our partner, so say what you like.
So we're going to leave it at Paul, and I'm going to thank the three of you for two great segments, and I really, really appreciate it. That's all the time we have tonight. Thanks so much. We had such a great panel, very robust and also very insightful. To find out more about our marriage panel guests, here's how to contact them. To connect with Meghan and Enrique, to connect with Rachel Singer, to connect with Paul Bennett. I've successfully counseled and coached marriages from my office in Montgomery County and virtually all over the world through my online relationship and marriage coaching practice. I invite you to find out more about how I can counsel and coach your marriage through my signature program, Recharge Your Marriage Now. Get in touch with me and begin to enrich your marital communication skills. Be heard. Say what you need to say to each other. Resolve some of that raw marital conflict. Reconnect for a deeper, more fulfilling relationship. Spice up that marriage, and you could be feeling the love again. Follow me on Twitter, like my Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube, check out the podcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. And finally, try some forgiveness if you can. Hug, kiss, touch, talk, cuddle, get out more, have a little fun, laugh a little, talk about what you need from each other and your marriage. Do something novel together that gets the neural juices going. Say you're sorry sometimes. Remember, we're all the sum total of our mistakes and our successes. So it's okay. We're only human. You can try again. I'm Zev Halpern. See you next time for Recharge Your Marriage.